This is the Sonicware Liven Evoke. It's a synthesizer based on a new type of oscillator called the Acoustronic Flux oscillator. A quick disclosure before I get into it. Sonicware did not send this device over. Money did change hands because I bought it second hand, and therefore they have no say over the content of this video, and they do not get to see it before I publish it. If we look at the outside of this synthesizer, we have a hard plastic case, a small but pretty bad speaker, which you can turn off by pressing function this button, speaker. Mute, speak, mute. Yes, you have a full-size MIDI clock sync in and out, line output and headphone output. It doesn't come with a power supply. You can either run it, as I do, on batteries, or you can connect it to a 9-volt adapter. At the heart of the instrument you have 4 tracks, all containing an instance of the oscillator, the filter, the LFO, the grain effect, but they do share the reverb send effect. You can mute each track by holding the function button and pressing which track you want to mute. You can choose how you want to play each track. You can choose whether you want to play it polyphonically or use an arpeggiator, or maybe play it monophonic. And I think the last one is legato. I actually don't know. On the Evoke, presets are called patterns. You just press the pattern button and then navigate through the different ones. The first 16 are factory presets, and they actually, factory patterns, and they actually do sound very nice. If you want to initialize the synth or start from scratch, you can always pick a new pattern. Once you've done all you want with it, you can save it by pressing function pattern save. Okay. And if you want to rename it, you have to press function data pattern rename. And then you select the pattern you want to rename, and press OK. And now you can rename your pattern whatever you want, as long as it's only consisting of 4 different digits or dots. You can have dots as well. The unique Acoustronic Flux oscillator consists of 2 types of sound generators. The first being an acoustic instrument generator, and the second being a harmonic wave generator. You can choose between a lot of different acoustic instruments or generated instruments. The first is a standard piano, grand piano. You can have a toy piano, a harp of some sort. You even get a cello, a trombone, sort of a trombone, an organ, and the list goes on. You can choose to modulate the acoustic instrument generator by what Sonicware calls a backtide, which sort of goes back and forth between the start and end of the wave. And then you can choose the speed of the movement. The second part of the oscillator is what they call a harmonic wave generator. Sounds much like a standard wavetable to me. You can blend between the two generators with this knob. On the left you have the acoustic, and on the right you have the wavetable. And in between you have a bit of both. If you want to change the pitch, of the wavetable, you can do so by holding Shift and then turning the pitch. And it has to load sometimes, I don't know why, but it doesn't react. And now it does. And that's the basics of the oscillator. The oscillator goes through a standard filter with a cutoff knob and a resonance. You can choose between different filter types by holding function and pressing filter type, and then you have a list of the different ones: low pass, high pass, band pass, and none at all. At the same place you have a simple attack and release envelope for the amplitude of the sound. You access it by holding the Shift button and turning the knob. And you'll have to get used to these two buttons because they control pretty much every aspect of this synthesizer. If we continue on, we get to the LFO section. Here you control the rate and depth of both LFOs. To assign a parameter to LFO1, you just use the function button and press assign. We can just use pitch for an example. And then you can pick the shape of the wave of the LFO. And there's actually quite some waves to choose from. You got your standard ones, triangle, saw, random, but you also have some very interesting ones like the logarithmic and the reverse logarithmic. You even have waves with steps in them and ramps. You can then choose between the settings of the LFO, how you want to trigger it, essentially, if you want to have some delay on it, or two triggers, or if you want to trigger it on note. So it's actually quite a deep LFO, the first one. The second one is almost as deep, but you don't get the setting, but the shapes are the same. Once you've chosen what settings you like, you can choose the depth and rate here. And now you can hear we trigger the LFO on key press. After the sound has gone through the filter section, it gets to the effects section. Here you control the level of the track and how much you want sent to the unique grain effect engine and the sent reverb. One thing I really like is that both effects are pre-volume, so you can actually turn down the volume and then still send the sound to the Granular Engine. So now you only hear the Granular Engine without the direct sound. And then you can blend it in using the level knob. Pretty cool. If we look at the reverb settings first, we can just turn the direct sound off and then send it to the reverb using the shift function. Again, you use the shift function for knobs and the function for buttons. So we hold shift and turn reverb. And now we only hear the reverb. To change the sound of the reverb, you just press function, reverb type, and then you get through the list of the reverbs. You have small rooms, medium-sized rooms, large rooms, and then you have a special type of reverb called Mirage, which sounds very nice. Those are the reverb settings. You have a lot of different parameters to control on the Granular Effect engine. We can either control the level, the size of grains, the timing, and then you have additional controls down here. If you don't want to manually sit and fiddle with all these controls, you can press the granular patch function, and that opens up 16 different types of granular effects or settings for the granular effects, so you don't have to fiddle with them yourself. This one sounds very nice. To save it or load it into your pattern preset, you just press OK. Done. So now you have a whole set of parameters chosen for you. If you want to go through the different settings, you hold function and press grain to go through the settings. If you want to change, for example, the direction of the grains, you stop here and then it goes into a menu where you can choose if you want the grains to play forward or backwards or random between those two. You can also choose the shape of the grains if you want them to be sharp and rhythmic. Or if you want to have them more faded and have them maybe get a softer type sound. You can also choose how big of a buffer size you want in this grain menu, but I like it as is. Then you continue to the pitch section. Here you control the pitch of the grains. We press function again and pitch. Here you can choose the range of the grains, how many octaves you want them to span over. You can choose the alignment of the grains, which means what scale they conform to. And here you have a bunch of options, your standard major and minor ones, Lydian, Mixolydian, Dorian, and so on. Here we can choose the spray of the grains, which means how close they are when being generated. We can choose the difference between the stereo, which gives the sound a wider stereo image. And we can choose to set a jitter amount of timing, which means there would be some fluctuation between the timing of the generation of the grains. If we continue, we have the filter function, and it pretty much explains itself. If we continue, you have a filter to send the grains through. You can choose between different types of filters, low pass, high pass, and so on. You can choose the frequency of the filter, of course, and you have an LFO to choose the rate and the depth of. And then last but not least, you can choose if you want to send the Granular Effect Engine to the reverb. That's pretty much all the settings of the Granular Engine. You of course have the ones in the section up here, the level, and remember to control it by holding Shift, how much reverb you want it sent to. Then you have the size of the grains. And the timing. So you control how fast the grains are being generated. And that's pretty much it for the upper section of the instrument. If we look at the sequencer, we can see 16 tracks at a time, and we have 3 main ways of sequencing those steps. The first being just holding down a step and pressing the note we want on it. A pretty easy way to sequence melodies. If we want to clear it and try another way, we have to press clear and the steps we want to clear. And say we made a huge mess, like so. We can clear the entire sequence by holding clear and track, choosing what values we want to have cleared, the note values, the sound values, the parameter lock values, or everything. And since we didn't do much, let's just choose everything. Okay. And now we're ready to try the second method of sequencing. Let's just choose a more pleasant sound. To do so, we press the record button, choose a step, and then press the note we want. But unlike before, the note repeats itself, so we can build up chords. If we want to cancel the notes, we just press them again. And if we want to tie notes from one step to another, we have to enable the function and tie button here. Then we choose the step we want, press the notes, hold the last one down and choose where we want them to end. And when we let go, it held the notes for 8 steps. That's the second way of sequencing. And of course, the last way to sequence is just playing it in live. If we want to clear again, we'll hold clear track, note yes, and now we can choose to play it in. But a nice option here is to have the metronome on, so you can press function metronome, turn it on, and then in the second in the settings menu of the metronome, you can choose to have a pre-count, which I chose to be 4 hits. To turn off the metronome, just hold function metronome. We can also sequence parameter values. To do so, we have 2 options, either to do as we did before, hold a track and turn the value we want to change. Maybe we should change the instrument on the first. Yes, you can do so. Let's just try something else. We can do this with almost every parameter we see. Let's try the cutoff on the second note. The second way of recording parameters is by doing so live. Here you just press record, play, and then turn the knobs you want. Pretty simple. If we want to clear parameter data, we hold the clear button, and then the lights that flicker, or LEDs that flicker, are the ones with parameter data on them. So we can choose just to press as we usually do. We could also do as before and press clear track and then choose parameter locking and then OK. And then it clears the parameter locking values. And we're back. We have a couple of ways to mangle with the sequence. To access them, we press the function button and choose maybe sequence. Here we can pick the gate length of the sequence, the transposition, meaning the pitch of the notes. We can also control the amount of string and the random step values. There's also another way to do so by using this dice knob. This controls the chance of a step being played. Normally it's at 100, but if we turn it down, the steps will gradually be played less and less. This knob also controls velocity of the keys you play. The next menu we have is the speed of the sequence, or the note value of each step. To access this, we do the same function note. Here we can see the standard is at 1/8. If we want the sequence to play faster, we just change the value. Or slower. Much slower. And the last option we have to change the sequence is the length of it, meaning the amount of steps you have. Right now we're only using 16 steps, but we can turn it up to 32, 48 and a maximum of 64. We can also choose unusual values by turning the value knob and then maybe just having 5 steps. Let's just pick up the pace again. Sequence note, yes. And that's pretty much the options you get for the sequencer. The last thing I want to mention is the keys. They are not velocity sensitive, but you can choose velocity yourself. And then they have a lot of menus to choose from. You can copy and paste steps. You can choose the BPM, the beat, if you want it to be global or based on patterns. The BPM settings, you choose the BPM up here. You choose the settings for the metronome, as we say, the clock in and out, which channels you want the MIDI to go to, and general system changes. Maybe this one is the most important key of them all, because here you can turn off the speaker so you don't have to hear it while playing through maybe more decent studio monitors. You do also have the option to play chords only using one key. To do so, you just press the chord function, and then you can choose from different styles of chords. Press function style, and then you have lots to choose from. You can't fit the chords to a scale as on many other devices, so if you want them to be in a certain key, you have to transpose the keyboard. That's it for the Sonicware Liven Evoke. I think I covered most of the unit. Let me know if I missed something important down in the comments. And since I spent my own money on it, I would like to say my opinion of it. I think this device is nice, like very nice. It sounds so good. It has its own character, a very unique one. The Granular Engine is superb. The reverb is very good. And I think the overall layout and playability of the device is top-notch. If I had to change one thing, I would actually make it maybe a bit more expensive and then change the casing of it so you didn't have to use the shift and function buttons as much. But that's it. I just love it. I love seeing new stuff on a market that has been, well, the same for many, many years. If you made it so far, please consider subscribing, and thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.